Long, long before there was an East Middlebury, a Vermont, a United States, or even people, there were the Green Mountains, once buried beneath miles of ice, then islands and an inland sea. The Green Mountains have defined the place we call Vermont for 400 million years. Native Americans arrived in the area more than 20,000 years ago. When Samuel Champlain and other Europeans arrived, a mere 400 years ago, the woods, streams, and lakes of Addison County were home to the Abenaki Nation. These native people, perfectly adapted to their environment, found themselves embroiled over the next 150 years in the struggle between the French and English and later the British Crown and colonial revolutionaries. Their fate was to suffer death and exile as the English and then Americans conquered. Following the French and Indian War in 1763, the disputed area of central and northern Vermont became open to settlement. The earliest English settlement in East Middlebury dates from 1775, when Ebar Everts cleared land for the construction of a tavern. Why build a tavern in the wilderness? There are two important reasons. First goes back to the mountains. Settlers, coming from north from Connecticut and Massachusetts, were anxious to reach the fertile areas adjacent to Lake Champlain, but to do so they needed a way to cross the Green Mountains. The Middlebury Gap was one of those crossing points. The second reason was water. The power of the 18th century was water. Water drove the machinery that ground corn and wheat, that sawed lumber, and lifted the 400-pound hammers of ironworks. The intervention of the American Revolution delayed the development of East Middlebury as Indian and British raiders made life perilous on the Canadian frontier, driving the settlers south to the refuges of Castleton and Bennington. It wasn't until 1790 that Jonathan Foote began commercial development along the Middlebury River, with the creation of a sawmill on the south side of the river near the bottom of the gorge. The river was a prime area for mills using water power. In 1810, Foote built a place of entertainment, the forerunner of the Waverly Inn, that also served as a stagecoach stop for traffic coming west over the Green Mountains from the White River Valley. Just upstream from his inn, Foote also built a home. The Foote Partridge House is perhaps the oldest private dwelling house in the village. It may be the original house built by Jonathan Foote as early as 1812. The Jones Marybelle Zahn House is the house built by Ephraim Jones at about the same time. Other industries soon followed. The first ironworks established in East Middlebury was the Eagle Forge, just north of the current bridge on Highway 125. The Eagle Forge was in operation as early as 1810. It washed away in a flood around 1831. No remnants of the structure remain. The East Middlebury Ironworks was constructed circa 1831 in the area just below the Highway 125 bridge. The river went on to power a grist mill, a wood finishing mill, and a tannery near the present Lower Plains Bridge Road. By the outbreak of the War of 1812, the village had added a general store, and Ephraim Jones had built a glassmaking facility to offset the glass shortage caused by an embargo on trade. The glass kiln was just west of the Waybury. In 1821, the community had 10 dwellings, an inn, and a few shops. Growth continued, so that by 1850, there were about 50 homes in the village. The coming of the Civil War saw many men from East Middlebury serve in the Union Army. One, Emory Bidwell, son of longtime Methodist minister Cedric Bidwell, was executed in 1863 by the Confederate Army in the Shenandoah Valley. Cyrus Brush was captured and spent time in the infamous Andersonville prison. John Manny and Austin Peck survived multiple battles, wounds, and captivity and returned to East Middlebury to live out the rest of their lives. All of these men have memorials in Prospect Cemetery. The demand for village products, iron, timber, glass, leather, and other goods, swelled to serve military needs during the war and led to further growth of the town. Norman Tupper built a grist mill on the river. The original mill was swept away in a freshet in 1869 and replaced by the current building. The 1872 map shows more than 70 homes along the Middlebury River. The 100 years after the Civil War saw many more changes in East Middlebury. The Methodist Church was established in 1864 and moved to the former Unitarian Church building in 1870. The inventive minds of the village residents continued to produce practical inventions and social change. The father and son, Norman and Almond Tupper, were mechanics and inventors. Norman is credited with inventing a circular saw with inserted teeth. The Tupper's mill was operated for many years by Austin Peck and was purchased by the Brown Novelty Company in 1915. Almond Tupper and his wife Mary were also active in community matters, including involvement with the Independent Order of Good Templars, a temperance organization that, unlike others of the era, admitted both males and females, as well as people of color. As industry waned at the end of the 19th century, East Middlebury turned to tourism. Traces of the guest houses and tourist cottages remain if you know where to look. In the 20th century, the village continued to produce and attract people of industry and intellect. Frank Partridge was a successful manager for Vermont Marble Company in Proctor and served as senator in both Vermont and at the federal level. He went on to serve as ambassador to Morocco and consul in Venezuela. Partridge was also instrumental in providing support for the construction of the Sarah Partridge Community House in memory of his mother. Robert Frost, poet emeritus of the United States, was a frequent visitor to the village and had his favorite table at the Waverly. Arthur Kennedy, actor appearing in Lawrence of Arabia, Fantastic Voyage, and many other films, was a frequent visitor to the inn. The connection to cinema for the village continued with the inspiration of the Newhart TV show. Inspired by a visit to the Waverly Inn, exterior shots of the inn and local landmarks were shown in the introduction to each episode. The actors portraying the innkeepers were Bob Newhart and Mary Fran. East Middlebury continues to be a place next to the river and below the Green Mountains where residents and visitors enjoy natural beauty, community, and the comfort of small town life. The place we call home continues to change and endure through flood and pandemic, while the people who live here have, as always, shown strength, industry, and resilience. Thank you for listening, and enjoy your time in East Middlebury.